Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and the co-host of the podcast Fear and Greed Business News. As always, I'm with Canna Campbell, financial planner, founder of Sugar Mama TV, the financial literacy platform on YouTube and podcasts and your website and books and Instagram and more. How are you going?
I'm well, thank you. I actually have a savings hack.
Ooh.
Which was very kindly given to me by one of our listeners, Yolana.
Actually, this is fantastic. When we get to the point of actually having savings hacks being contributed to us, then it feels like there's limited risk of me recycling old savings hacks that I have used, which I've tried to do with you in the past, where I go, I've thought of a really good savings hack. And they're like, no, you've already used that one.
If I hear a savings hack, it goes into the memory bank forever. So you cannot pull the wool over these eyes.
All right, let's hear it. What have we got?
So Yolana messaged me and she said she never pays for her mobile phone bill.
Okay, that sounds like it's got the potential to be illegal.
So what she explained is she's on a SIM only that she has purchased through Woolworths. And because of that, because she's with Woolworths, with her mobile phone provider, she gets 10% off one grocery shop per month. So she makes sure that when she does that one grocery shop where she's going to clip her ticket and get that 10% off, she makes it a really large grocery order that's going to last her a couple of weeks. So she'll make that between sort of $300 to $400, which then saves her $30 to $40, which is the cost of her monthly mobile phone bill through Woolworths.
That's a great tip.
Yeah, how clever is that?
Oh, that's really good. That's so much better than the one I was going to suggest.
You wanted to pull out an old one that you're trying to do the sneaky and think I wouldn't remember that savings hack of the toy library.
No, I was going to suggest the discounted barbecue chickens. That's also at Coles or Woolies. So I was just, anyway, that's fine. This is fantastic. And look, if you happen to have a savings hack that we haven't brought up or that you think we might be interested in, please send it on through, and probably best to get in touch with you via Instagram.
Yes, that would be great. And I promise to credit you in the savings hack. I will not try and claim it as my own, but I can't say the same about Michael. That's why you shouldn't message them to Michael.
No, send them in to me. And look, I will privately credit you with it and publicly claim it as my own. Now, look, let's get into it today, because I have wanted to actually do today's topic for quite a long time. Not because I've actually received a windfall, but I kind of want to be ready for when I do. And it's not if I do, it is when. I've got the money mindset here.
Oh, you are open to the flow of money.
I'm manifesting a lotto win.
Okay.
Which
do you
I
buy
know.
lottery tickets?
Yes.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I do. Oh,
You
no.
look like you're lying.
Huh?
You look like you're lying.
No, I'm not. I'm scared because I know that I don't think you approve of this.
There's nothing wrong with lottery tickets. It's not like you're addiction and you're
No.
jeopardising the family budget.
No, absolutely not. No. I have it on one of those subscriptions that's set up on the app. That sounds bad. No, but it only buys a ticket when it hits a certain point, so that suddenly like the jackpot is kind of at $50 million or something like that, and that is when it will buy a ticket automatically.
So you are buying lottery tickets when the odds are even more stacked against you.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to win anyway. So, I mean, why wouldn't I just take a punt on the big ones? The logic doesn't work out. I'm realising this as I say it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I'm going to buy a ticket when I'm unlikely to win, I may as well buy a ticket in one of the bigger ones on the off chance that I do win.
Or you could buy a lottery ticket, say, for a birthday occasion or a Christmas present, and buy them for the small lotteries where the odds may work for you.
But the odds wouldn't change. I mean, the numbers are still going to be drawn out, and that doesn't change whether there's, say, 1 million people that have bought a ticket or, say, 5 million people. It might just increase the chance that you're going to have to share the win with somebody else. But if you're like playing for $50 million or $100 million, then you can probably share more of that around than you can if the jackpot's only $1 million or $2 million. I've put a lot of thought into my lottery strategy here.
I can tell.
I feel a judgment. I feel like it. Also,
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So this is why I didn't want to tell you. Say I was to win lotto, right? And this is getting us back on topic. If you were to come into some unexpected money, and if it I mean, let's not talk about, say, $50 million or something. Let's talk more about something realistic like a Christmas bonus, okay? Or if you were to, say, receive an inheritance, perhaps, or sell a car or something like that, or redundancy payments or something along those lines that are the kinds of things that do actually happen, not the kind of the dream result of winning lotto. If you've managed to kind of get your hands on a lump sum of cash, what do you actually do with it? Now, obviously, before we kind of go any further, please know that anything we talk about today is always general in nature, and it is never personal, investment, strategic, or product advice. It is, of course, purely for financial education purposes only.
That's right. We don't know anything about your financial situation, your deadlines for your financial goals and dreams, and of course, what your risk profile might be. So you should always speak to a financial planner when you need personal financial advice.
Have you ever had a windfall like this? Clearly, you're not a lottery player by the sounds of it, because you.
Oh, not necessarily. When it comes to, say, Tom's birthday or Christmas time or the kids, like randomly, I might buy each family member as a bit of a fun once a year, everyone a lottery ticket or a scratchy.
Oh, that's good.
But it's just a bit of fun. Like, I really do look at flushing that money down the toilet. You know, I don't go in there thinking this is the winning ticket. But
you're not open to the flow of money, Canna.
I am open, but it's more about the experience and just doing something different, and you never know. But
it does feel like if you're going into it saying that I'm flushing this money down the toilet, that is not manifesting. I have taught you nothing.
I guess I'm talking from a financial planning point of view. I don't look at this as an opportunity cost. I look at this as an expense in an experience of showing our kids what, hoping or dreaming, or it's just a little bit of a bit of fun. That's it. And that's it. And literally it will be once a year I do that.
And there's some alarming stats about people who do win lotto and what they do with it, isn't it?
I did lots and lots of reading, and I kind of went down a rabbit warren, but apparently up to 70% of lottery winners actually end up bankrupt within 3 to 5 years of that windfall.
Why?
Well, it makes sense, but it's a combination of things. And this is why I think financial education really is so incredibly important. But, there's lots of things. So combination of reckless spending, giving it to family and friends, attracting the wrong people with your newfound wealth, euphoric decisions, thinking that they know what's best, and that can often result in crazy, toxic investment decisions that come with huge regret that they never really understood in the first place, short-term focus, living in the moment, not taking into consideration financial responsibilities like taxes and debts and liquidity, even situations where people have won a huge amount of money and gone and bought a huge asset, such as a very expensive home, but they didn't realise that it actually costs a lot of money to maintain that home. And they don't actually have the income to afford to maintain that home. So it really does backfire. But one thing I will say is money magnifies what is within us. So if we want a windfall, we have to be prepared that what is within us is going to be bigger, better, and bolder. So if we are tight with money and we get a windfall with money, we are going to be more protective and careful of that money because there's more there to take care of and to watch out for and be more vigilant about. Or if we're generous with money and we have a windfall, we're going to be even more generous, most likely. But this is where education comes in, to understand how to use that money wisely.
You're making a lotto win not sound like much fun right now. It feels like you are successfully sucking all of the joy out of winning lotto.
No, but I want anyone that's coming into a windfall or is about to or just has to think, I'm so glad I listened to Canna, because I know that I need to educate myself before I do anything with this money, because I want to make sure that this money stays with me and grows with me. Now, how much better? I sound way more open to the flow of money now.
That sounds a lot better than when you just started with, like, I'm just flushing the money down the toilet.
That's in relation to the $25 I've just spent at my local news agency. That's what I'm talking about.
I know. It's very rare that I get to accuse you of being negative about money.
That's true.
And it just feels like I'm just getting one up on you at last. So after, what's this, like episode 56 or 57 or 58 or something, and this is the first time in like 58 episodes where I'm like, I am more open to the flow than you. This is quite a moment. I'm going to assume, because I like to make assumptions here, and typically they are wrong, but I make them anyway, that the worst thing that you can do when you receive a windfall, rush out and spend it. It's very tempting.
And you are correct. The worst thing you could possibly do is make a decision. You're best to really do nothing until you are ready.
I have spent lottery prizes many times in the past in my head. I have picked out which house I'm going to buy. I've picked out which new car I'm going to get. I've picked out which particular kind of resort we are going to stay at and how many rooms we're going to take in that resort for how many family and friends we're going to take.
Are you taking the presidential suite by any chance?
I'm doing what they call a buyout of the full resort, where they just take every room, even if I don't need them. I'm just... This is a good attitude to money. But the temptation would be very hard to resist if you have come into money to not just go out and buy something that you've had your eye on, or to just splurge and go, you know what, it's not all of it. I'm only spending half of it. I can treat myself. I didn't easy come, easy go. I didn't have this money before. Oh gosh, that was a trigger, wasn't it? That was
easy come, easy go.
I actually saw this little twitch just then. It was just like this. Oh. That is a bad approach.
That is a very bad attitude.
It's what they always used to say on Deal or No Deal. Do you remember that show? It was on Channel 7, I think it was, and where they were trying to decide which kind of case they were going to open.
Oh, yes.
And whether or not they'd take the deal or just keep on going and keep on gambling, and they'd be going for potentially like $10 in one case or like $50,000 in another case. And they could just take the deal that was offered to them, which might have been, say, $20,000. It was never kind of split right down the middle because it was always kind of stacked against them a little bit. And you would see player after player after player say, easy come, easy go. I came here with nothing. I may as well just go all in. And they would open the case and they'd walk away with $10 instead of the $50,000. And so that has stuck in my head for a very long time. And I'm just like going, no, take the deal. I got very engaged while watching.
So imagine you on like a Tuesday afternoon sitting on the couch getting really involved.
Oh yeah, it was very, very kind of high stress, high stakes kind of stuff. Anyway, that's a good example of a windfall. So say suddenly then you've kind of pocketed that. The main thing is to just sit back, take a moment, and that is probably a really good time to get some advice, isn't it?
Exactly. And depending obviously where the money has come from and how much we're talking about and what your situation looks like and what you want, not only would you want to go and see a financial planner, you also may need to go and speak to an accountant as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because there may be some tax around that you need to take into consideration.
Can I just ask you a very quick question on that? The division between what an accountant and a financial planner can do in terms of the advice that they can give you, what's the line there?
Okay, so an accountant cannot give you investment advice and a financial planner cannot give you tax advice.
Okay.
It's as simple as that.
So you really just need one of each?
Yes, you do. And you also may need a lawyer because if there is a large amount of money involved or it comes with a complicated, background or scenario, or your situation is fairly complicated, or there are some things important to you that you need to understand from a legal point of view, you may need a lawyer as well.
Okay, so let's assume then that you've found a good accountant, you've got a good financial planner, you've potentially got a lawyer, especially if you're kind of dealing with larger sums. You would need that kind of...
Well, not necessarily larger sums, but if you want to think about, okay, well, I've got this money, I need to protect it. Or, I have a certain situation with other family members as well, or situations where perhaps you have children that have maybe learning disabilities or have siblings or people from previous marriages as well, where, it's, and I'm starting to sort of sound a little bit insensitive, and I definitely don't mean to, but there are all sorts of different people that make the world go round, and sometimes people's motivations and, objectives can shift, and it can bring out sometimes the worst in people, particularly when it's come from, say, family money.
Money can do funny things to people.
Absolutely, and it is really about your situation and what your situation looks like, and whether they're people that you maybe need to protect, particularly if they're people with special needs, or there's people with perhaps addictions that you need to be mindful of and put systems in place that support people and protect people. And of course, sometimes money can bring all sorts of different people out of the woodworks for the wrong reasons. So you want to be thinking about, it's not just the money as the dollar figure, it's also about what's going on in your situation and what is best for you and for your loved ones around you.
And that is kind of key to it. It does depend on your circumstances, doesn't it? Because, for instance, a redundancy payment might be a nice kind of sum, but you could be out of work for 6 months or something. So it's the case, don't go and rush out and buy a new car because you might need to be paying the rent or the mortgage, using that money for the next year.
Absolutely. Or something actually may happen to you just around the corner and you now may need that money, to pay for, say, medical treatment or to make some lifestyle changes yourself.
Can we talk about, this sounds exciting, doesn't it? Can we talk about tax? I'm curious about kind of the tax on different kind of windfalls. Prizes are typically tax-free, aren't they?
Correct.
But depending on what you do with that prize, that may not then be, if you invest it, I'm assuming then there are a lot of tax implications that come in to effect there.
Well, say you win $1 million in the lottery.
Okay, let's say that.
You decide to go and invest that $1 million into a share portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months later, you decide to sell that share portfolio. Assuming you've made a profit, yes, the gain that you made will be accessible, but the gain you made is accessible, not the $1 million. So say, for example, you bought $1 million worth of stock and now you sold it for 1.1. That $100,000 would be assessed. But if you held that investment portfolio for more than 12 months, only 50,000 of it would be accessible because you get a 50% capital gains discount, which is why it's worth knowing that, because I could have saved you some money just to hold on a bit longer, especially if you were holding on to it for 11 months. You might go, well, hang on, I'll hold on for an extra 4.5 weeks because I'll save myself a whole pile of tax. That's why it's worth having a great accountant and a great financial planner and having good regular communication with those two people and within each other as a trio so that you're making great decisions.
What about inheritance taxes in that space? It feels like it could get a bit tricky.
Well, as at today, there is no death duty or estate tax or inheritance tax yet. I do really wonder if that's going to change because there've been lots of articles in the media recently about the huge amount of wealth that is going to be transferred, to the younger generations as the baby boomers, are retiring, and obviously they've held a large amount of assets and property, and obviously they will go through the natural progression of life and life cycle. So, I think that's something potentially that could change when we look at our, budget deficit. But at this stage, no, there is no tax.
It might be worth doing an episode on that, the transfer of wealth between generations in the future, because it is, as you say, something that is going to be affecting an awful lot of people.
It's actually really interesting you say that, because I had a couple of situations, actually more than a couple of situations, where I met with clients and they inherited large amounts of money, but they had actually put that money in cash for years and years because they felt so guilty and sad about that inheritance. It was a huge money block. But it wasn't until they came and saw me that we sat down and broke it down and talked about using that money and making that particular grandmother or aunt or parent proud of them and letting them make peace with the fact of doing something productive with that money and letting that money, grow and accumulate and, be able to provide for education and homing and even be able to afford to make charity donations. So it's, some people think, there's this assumption that people get a windfall and, blow it and spend it. But there is also the other side of people who actually get quite frightened and they almost like freeze up with knowing and understanding what to do with that money, and it just sits sitting in a term deposit or a savings account for years and years doing nothing because there's just this kind of literally a block. And they don't feel like it's their money or that they're worthy of that money or they should use that money or that they should, benefit from that money.
Okay, I think it's definitely worth a broader conversation.
Yeah.
I'll write that one down and we'll get to that one soon. Selling things. Selling, when I say things, it's things around the house. Say selling a car or something like that. tax?
No.
Okay.
Remember when we did Manifesting March?
I do remember this.
And I had that girl who tried to manifest $1,500 and she actually manifested $15,000 because someone gave her a piece of jewellery that she thought was worth $1,500 and got it valued and it was worth $15,000. So no tax on that whatsoever.
Oh, that's fantastic. And what about a Christmas bonus?
Christmas bonus, it depends how it's paid. So obviously if it's paid as a bonus, yes, so you're going to get hit with pay-as-you-go tax, so your employer will take that out on your behalf. But one thing that a lot of employers are doing this year is doing gift cards.
All right.
As long as they're under $300, they're tax-free.
Really?
Per staff member. And it's got to be not for being paid work. It's got to be a legitimate, gift. Happy birthday or a Merry Christmas, here you go, gift card.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Clever little thing to know.
That's great to know. Okay, let's take a quick break. I want to come back in a moment and talk to you about what would give you the best bang for your buck in terms of if you do receive a windfall of something, what should you be doing that's actually going to give you the best bang for your buck, whether it is investing, whether it is putting it in a term deposit, whether it is putting it in cash somewhere. I say these things just to trigger a reaction now. I'm doing what I like to call canna-baiting, where you just kind of put this term out there and just wait for the twitch to start in the eyebrow. And on that occasion, I got one.
You did. You've had a few of these this morning,
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty proud of myself. All right, we'll come back in a second and do a little bit more. Canna, we're talking all about windfalls today and what to do if you do come into a little bit of money, whether it is through an inheritance or through a lottery win or selling something like a car or a chest of drawers. I don't know why I thought of a chest of drawers. I can't imagine that a chest of drawers is going to bring in a huge amount of money. It's just the first...
Maybe an antique one that you happen to buy off Gumtree and then discover is actually a bit of an heirloom.
Has that ever happened to you? It feels like Antiques Roadshow. You know that show?
Oh, yeah.
So far I've talked about kind of Deal or No Deal now, Antiques Roadshow.
I'm starting to think you watch a lot of TV.
A lot of daytime TV. That's really kind of afternoon kind of stuff, isn't it?
I'm learning a lot about you.
Okay, so assuming then that it is an antique chest of drawers or something like that, so there's a little bit of money attached to it, whether it's a Christmas bonus or something along those lines, what should you actually be doing with it? We know that the first thing to do is not rush out and make any quick decisions, that you should be getting some advice, an accountant, financial planner, potentially a lawyer, as we discussed. But what do you think would actually give you the best bang for your buck here? Is it investing? Or I could make assumptions, but I'm not going to. Just for a change, I'm going to let you actually just answer the question.
All right, so this is general advice, but the order of priorities would be number one, toxic debt. So you would use that to get rid of, say, credit card debt or personal loans or car loans. The next would be to put that money into some emergency savings, which we have spoken about. We had actually a whole episode dedicated to emergency money and how much you really do need. So you'd put that into a separate dedicated savings account for emergencies. Then you would look at semi-toxic debt like your mortgage. Paying off some money off your mortgage, could be it's semi-toxic. Yes, it is semi-toxic. I know you're probably frowning at me.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just curious because we have done toxic debt before and we've talked about kind of credit card debt because it doesn't lead to anything. It doesn't help build your wealth. And we've talked about kind of the debt that you can use in terms of like debt recycling, which can help build your wealth. So I'm assuming that's toxic debt at one end, say your credit card, and then the non-toxic debt at the other end, say debt recycling, etc. What is this semi-toxic debt that sits in the middle?
Well, a home loan is semi-toxic. So, look, a home loan allows you to borrow money to acquire an asset that grows in value. Albeit, obviously, everyone else's house grows around with you as well. But the interest is not tax deductible. And your home is definitely not a asset as in an investment asset. It's not providing you with any passive income unless you are, renting out all the bedrooms. So, yes, the interest, if you look at your monthly statements or jump online and you look at how much the bank charges you each month in interest, that is dead money.
Okay.
They say rent money is dead money. Interest is dead money too. So that is a form of toxic debt. It doesn't actually help improve your financial situation whatsoever. So if you were to win some money, say you won $20,000 on a scratchy, and assuming you've got your emergency money sorted in an offset or a redraw account and you don't have any credit cards, you could put that money towards your home loan. And that would obviously save you a lot of money in interest and valuable time as well. So that's why it's semi-toxic.
Okay, so are there any more priorities after that? Toxic
Yes.
debt, emergency money, then semi-toxic. What's number 4?
Well, 4 would be you could look at starting in to invest, building up that diversified share portfolio if something like that appealed to you, or perhaps you wanted to use it as a deposit to buy an investment property, or whatever your heart desires when it comes to investing. And then, of course, you could look at superannuation as well, which is another very powerful asset to look at in getting ahead financially and making the most of money. But you obviously need to be very careful of the annual, and it's actually per financial year, limits and caps as to how much you can put into superannuation. And you also need to be aware of that when you put money into superannuation, you can't get it back out until you meet a condition of a release, which for most people is retirement. So that's why it's, at the bottom of the list. But
So
it is
do
most definitely an option.
Would we put super as a separate? I'm very particular here about this list. So I'm writing all of this down. So item number 4 being investing has kind of super as part of that. It's like a sub.
No, I would keep your superannuation is your investment portfolio just locked away, but you can have an investment portfolio and a superannuation portfolio.
Okay, I'm going to put it as point number 5 then on the
Yeah,
list.
that's what I think. Just like I said, point number 5.
What did you?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I might have missed that.
Okay. All right. I'm now going to recap. Okay.
Okay.
Sit back, Michael. Okay.
Okay.
Number 1, toxic
School me.
debt. Okay. Number 1, toxic debt. So credit cards, personal loans, car loans. Number 2, emergency savings. And if you have a home loan, you might want to use your emergency savings through your redraw or offset account so it saves you time and interest in the meantime. Then we have semi-toxic debt, which is an example is your home loan. Yes, I am calling it semi-toxic, which I just explained why. Number 4 is investing. And number 5 is superannuation.
Oh, so number 5. So it's a separate point.
It's my God.
Oh, that was so good. That was the most
I
satisfying.
just bit and you got me.
Oh, successful cannabating. This is great. We're having a good...
Tom will be very jealous that he's not here to watch this
but
and egg you on and chime in as well.
The best part is it is a podcast and he can listen to it over and over again just to hear that moment when you realise that you had been successfully cannabated.
He'll come home laughing. He'll have a big smile on his face.
Oh, I feel like I've achieved something. I've learnt a lot today, but I've also ticked that box as well. Okay, we started talking about lottery wins, and that's really not going to happen realistically, and it shouldn't be. Look, I'm turning into
You never know.
Well, now
I'm turning into you.
Oh, there we go. But I mean, that's really not the kind of outcome that you should be necessarily planning for with this. It is probably the more realistic outcomes that we're talking about, kind of like your inheritance potentially, or a Christmas bonus, or selling an item, or something like that. These are the more realistic windfalls that people will potentially experience during their lifetime. Not everyone's going to experience a lotto win. I would love to, but it's probably not going to happen. So just to kind of cover a few of those things, the mindset is very important, clearly, from what you're saying, that it is not just... I love that point that you made, that money magnifies what is within us. So you come into some money and whatever your attitude to money is, that it is just going to be magnified because you have more of it. So if you're a generous person, you're going to become even more generous. If you're a bit kind of careful, you'll probably be even more careful. I like that. But the mindset kind of thing about just stopping, just taking a moment.
Press pause.
Yeah, think about it. And then wait until you're ready to actually do something. And in order to be ready, you might need to be getting some advice. And that advice, depending on the circumstances, could be from financial planner, an accountant, a lawyer, depending on the circumstances of what the windfall actually was. You might need a lawyer to be advising you on kind of how it is to be managed and how it is to be protected. It does depend on your circumstances. Everything depends on your circumstances. Say, for instance, if it's a redundancy payment, that you might need to be looking at kind of where you're at in your life and where you're at in your career and whether you're going to be able to get another job quickly before you kind of rush out and buy $10,000 worth of lottery tickets. Tax is something that you do need to be kind of taking into account, and that we talked about kind of how tax applies to kind of prizes or the money that you spend or you invest using prize money, inheritance, selling items like that antique chest of drawers that we discussed finding in a Gumtree sale, or a Christmas bonus. The best bang for your buck, which was a very kind of contentious list, which was a more kind of contentious list than I was expecting it to be. The order of priority toxic debt number 1, including credit cards, car loans, etc. Emergency money number 2, rebuilding that kind of supply of money that is there ready in case something goes wrong. And it's definitely worth going back and listening to the episode on emergency money, because you talked about the run of bad luck that you had, where you just had hit after hit after hit, and that the money was just rushing out the door.
All of our emergency money was wiped out. Plus, we had to also use all our separate savings. Tom had earmarked for something else for himself, got wiped as well. So we didn't even have enough emergency money at the end of the day.
And then item number 3 was the semi-toxic debt, i.e. your home loan. Then number 4 was investing. So perhaps kind of if you're interested in like a diversified portfolio or something along those lines. And number 5, which was a standalone point, as discussed, superannuation, and potentially topping up your super, maybe making a contribution to a spouse's super.
Yes, that's definitely something you can look at doing. But again, you need to speak to a financial planner and an accountant, because there are limits as to how much you can put in there and what is actually more tax effective. And one other little thing we didn't touch on is also charity.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, we missed that.
I know.
It doesn't say anything about my money mindset.
No, I'm not going to judge you for this one. But if you come into a large amount of money, you think, you know what, I don't want this money, or I'd like to actually use this money to create some good in the world, which is a beautiful thing and a very honourable thing. There are lots of different ways to donate money, and you can obviously just write them a check. But in fact, sometimes what might be better is if you can maybe set up like a perpetuity where there's a regular amount of donations being made year after year after year, so that it isn't necessarily just one large lump sum amount of money, but perhaps more a sustainable income source that can provide them with annual donations year after year after year to the charity. And that's something that a lawyer can help. And there are lots of different special trust structures set up to help people facilitate that process and work with the charity so that they do have this almost like an annuity or a passive income stream coming in with continuous donations year after year.
I think that you've inspired me in a number of ways this episode. I think it's worth doing an episode on philanthropy and on...
I would love that.
Because there are so many different ways to help people.
Yes.
And to help charities, to help organisations, and it doesn't need to be a huge sum.
Yeah. And sometimes that income stream can be more beneficial to that charity than just writing them a lump sum.
Okay. Well, let's do an episode on that one as well. I'm just coming up with all of these episode ideas. It feels like we're brainstorming live in the studio today. It's very productive.
Episode reminds me, though, of, you know, the movie Ocean's 9 it is? And there's I think it's Ocean's 9, 10, 11.
Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11 is the first one.
Is it?
I think,
okay.
Isn't it? And then there's Ocean's 12 and Ocean's 13.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
That my memory's not so great today. But I think it's the last one where they're all broke. All 5, 6, 7 criminals, professional thieves, are broke. They've all gambled it, spent it on women, firearms, sports cars, luxury travel, except one of them. I think he's the second eldest man. He's like, you guys missed the market? But he actually is the only one out of the whole group of them that is actually wealthier. He's like, how did you not see the share market? See what Dow Jones was doing. S&P didn't put any money in the market. He's yelling at them going.
I love that you criticise me for kind of taking money lessons from Deal or No Deal and from Antiques Roadshow, and yet here you are quoting from Ocean's 11.
I know, there you go. And I don't really watch movies, so that's quite impressive by me.
Well, considering you called it Ocean's 8 to begin with, I think that much is pretty clear.
I do remember Brad Pitt in it, though, that's for sure.
Goodness me. All right, Canna, where do we find you if we need more information about your obsession with Brad Pitt?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just had a little micro daydream about Brad Pitt then for a second and millions of dollars and the share market. But best way to get in contact with me is Instagram, probably the fastest way. So send me through a DM there and I'll always come back to you as fast as I can.
And you can hear me every day with Sean Aylmer on Fear and Greed Business News, Australia's best business podcast. Thank you very much for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember to please hit follow on the podcast and leave us a review as well. We love seeing nice reviews, and a 5-star rating is always very much appreciated. Next week, we are talking about Christmas. It's actually not that far away, and so we've got a little bit of a guide on how to make Christmas very merry, but also financially sustainable. Don't miss it.